The biggest capital needed in poultry is time. Poultry farming is it is nurturing. We are nurturing these birds.
There's an interesting conversation going on about the number, the suitable number of birds which makes a business sense in terms of profit-wise. Is it 300 or is it 500 layer birds to start with? And I just want to pick your mind on that.
Realistically speaking, in as much as we tell people to start small or to start with numbers they can really manage, now you brought an example of 300 and 500. Realistically, poultry is a game of numbers. If a person has 500 birds, of course, she or he can outcompete the person who has 300 birds.
Okay.
Because the profit he is going to earn is way higher than what this person is going to earn. If we are looking at the 80% production, a person who has 500 birds will be collecting at least 13 trays daily. And then you with 300, you'll be collecting 8 trays daily. And then the only difference in the cost of production, the biggest maybe difference, will be the feeds.
Okay.
Because for one bird, a bird needs almost 8 kilograms from day one to the point of lay.
To the point of lay when it starts laying?
Okay, when to break even. To break even, you'll need at least, each bird will have fed at least 8 kilograms. Now, if you are to look at the average price, in as much as our prices fluctuate all the time, I'm going to say each kg will cost around 1,500. So you'll find a person who has kept 300 birds will spend 3.6 million on only feeds. And then the person who has kept 500 birds will spend at least 6 million on feeds.
Before we continue, do you know there are some people who are actually feeding their birds, each bird on more on a type of feed which is more expensive, even beyond the average we are estimating of 1,500.
Exactly. But then I also know of people who are feeding their birds way below the price I have mentioned. That's why I urge all farmers, especially if you're beginning, to do more research on feeds, because feeds take almost 80% of the entire farm expenses. True. You need to be really knowledgeable about different feed formulations. But then back to the topic, like I was telling you, so then you will find when to do with other farm expenses like vaccinations, medications, breeding expenses, labor, you're spending the same. You who has 300 and me who has 500. We are spending the same exact amount of money. And then when it comes to earning, I'm earning way higher than you.
But I even doubt if someone raising 300 birds, if we had gone deep into the calculations, will this person who is raising 300 be able to even pay themselves?
Yes, it's very much possible.
Okay.
But then I would say, economically speaking, it's easier to grow your farm from 500 to maybe 1,000 than from 300 to a very bigger number. It's possible, but then this person will find it way easier than that. But and my argument would be, I think we should, before we start focusing more on the numbers, should I start with 300, 500? That your pocket has to decide for you.
Yeah.
But then I would say your management practices should be very key before you think of starting. Your management practices should be very key. Why do I say that? A person who has 300 birds can easily outperform a person who has 500 birds.
Okay, that's interesting.
If their management practices are way better than this person who has 500 birds.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. I'll start with marketing. Personally, my own experience, I've ever sold eggs entirely on the farm without selling them out there. And then also I've ever sold eggs entirely out there. That's when when I initially started farming, I was selling out there
to the final consumer.
Currently, because of the market logistics, sometimes our eggs, the market is, flooded. I realized I need both. I need to sell on the farm and I also need to sell outside.
Yeah.
But why am I telling you this experience? I realized when a person sells completely and entirely on the farm, and then this other person has access to the outside market, to the field, this person is making way higher profits than someone who is selling
At the farm.
entirely on the farm. So how you market your products, you can be having 300 birds, I have 500, but then how you're marketing your products, you're earning more from your products than what I am earning. Then feed, the cost of production, how are you managing your cost of production?
Maybe even before we go there, I've seen some people even packaging their eggs and then they deliver to their customers.
Yeah, that's value addition. It also comes with the costs. But if you have smaller numbers, really, anyway, it depends on your budget, but you have smaller numbers. Now we are talking 300, 500. I don't know how that is going to increase the profit, though it's good for the people who do it. But my main concern, or what I would urge farmers out there to do is to focus more on the management practices. Like I was telling you, to do away with the market. Now we are talking of feed expenses. I can be having 500 birds, you have 300 birds, but where am I getting my feeds? And at how much? At what cost? What is my feed formulation? Your feed formulation could be giving you value for your money. You're getting good quality feeds, you're mixing them yourself, and then there is me. I don't even know how to mix feeds myself. I have to go to the store, they mix for me. I don't know what they've mixed. I'm giving my birds that they're not giving me great production, and I'm buying them expensively. So you will find this person with 300. It is very easy for her to outperform this one, or to earn the same profits as someone who is keeping 500 birds.
Wow.
Yes, and also the farm equipments. You realize that all farmers, we have different farm equipments.
That's true.
One can decide to have automated drinkers. Now that's also another expense, which is an investment. Yes.
I was going to say that. Isn't it best if you have the money to invest in those automatic systems, because they have the advantages as well? We can't roll out that.
Yeah, they do have their advantages, and I have them down at the farm. But I would still say, if you don't have a proper budget for them, it's not something you shouldn't rush into buying those expensive farm equipments, because now you're investing in more, and usually this money doesn't come back even after the first batch you've reared. If my management practices, me who has 500, are not key, I'm not maintaining the proper biosecurity, and then there is you're maintaining proper biosecurity. Now remember, you're having a number that is easily manageable. You see, you're limiting visitors on your farm, you're doing these things hands on yourself, you're making sure that drinkers are clean, the whole farm is disinfected at least maybe regularly, or maybe you have a timetable for it. You're vaccinating your birds on time. And then there is me with my 500 birds. I'm not vaccinating on time. I let visitors come the way they want on the farm. I'm not maintaining proper biosecurity. That means I'm always incurring losses or costs in buying medication for my sick birds. I always have outbreaks on the farm, relative to a person who doesn't. It doesn't incur any losses in medicating birds or treating birds.
They can even lose the birds. This one.
Yeah, they can even lose the birds because you're not maintaining biosecurity. Yes, you have the numbers, but when you have an attack, you might lose the numbers. So management practices, honestly, should be key before we even think of the numbers one wants to start with. I would say, to wrap that up, I would say the biggest capital needed in poultry, the biggest capital needed in poultry is time. Poultry farming is nurturing. We are nurturing these birds. If you don't have time for them, even if you invest millions and millions of money, you are going to lose that money in the long run.
Wow.
You need to have time for them. You need to be passionate about this. Why am I saying passionate? Like, one needs to be passionate about it. It might sound like motivational talk, but when you incur challenges, maybe your birds get sick, you see them dying, it is going to be passion that is going to keep you going in this business. Me, I've experienced gomboro. I've experienced a very poor structure where I had to hold basins inside the poultry structure to prevent like water leaking in the poultry structures. But let me tell you, because I'm passionate about the business, I've never felt like quitting. Because I know that investment is already done.
Yeah.
I've never felt like quitting. Because I know even when I quitting is not going to recover my losses.
You won't.
That's why I hold on to it, and I have time for my business. So I think that's the biggest capital one.
Wow, thank you so much. So the debate is officially closed. It's not about the numbers, but how actually you manage your farm.